The stars had always been quiet for humanity. For 300 years, they had spread across 12 star systems, building colonies, raising families, and living in peace. They were newcomers to a galaxy filled with ancient civilizations. The Galactic Accord, a group of 200 alien species, had watched humans arrive with mild interest. To them, humans were small, weak, and short-lived. They were not a threat. They were barely worth noticing. Admiral Unipark stood on the command deck of Sentinel-7, defense station floating at the edge of human space. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen many things. She had spent her whole career preparing for a war that she hoped would never come. Now, as she stared at the message on her screen, she knew that hope was dead. The Velthari Dominion had sent an ultimatum. The Velthari were the military arm of the Galactic Accord. They were an ancient species, proud and powerful. Their warships were the size of small moons. Their weapons could crack planets. In 40,000 years, they had never lost a war. They did not expect to lose this one either. The message was simple. Humanity would surrender 3 of its richest colony worlds. They would pay tribute to the Dominion for the next 1,000 years. They would accept Velthari oversight of all military activity. If they refused, there would be consequences. Admiral Park read the message 3 times. Then she called a meeting with her senior officers. Commander Tae-ho Kim was the first to arrive. He was 31 years old, tall and thin, with sharp eyes and a quick mind. He was the best tactical officer in the fleet, and everyone knew it. He sat down across from the Admiral and waited. "You've seen the ultimatum?" Park said. "Yes, Admiral. What do you think?" Tae-ho was quiet for a moment. "I think they're not really asking. They've already decided what they're going to do. This ultimatum is just for show. They want to look reasonable to the rest of the galaxy before they attack us." Park nodded slowly. She had thought the same thing. The Council is debating right now. Some want to negotiate. Some want to comply. And you, Admiral? Park looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, 4 million people lived on the colony of New Inchin. Families, children, people who had never heard of the Velthari and did not care about galactic politics. They just wanted to live their lives. "I don't think the Velthari will give us a choice," she said. She was right. 72 hours later, while the United Earth Council was still debating, the Velthari fleet arrived at New Inchin. There was no warning. There was no demand for surrender. The Velthari simply opened fire. Commander Tae-ho Kim watched the destruction from Sentinel-7. The station's long-range sensors showed everything in terrible detail. He saw the orbital platforms vanish in balls of fire. He saw the cities on the surface burn. He saw 4.2 million lives end in less than an hour. His younger sister Jimin had lived on New Inchin. She was 24 years old. She had been a teacher at a small school in the capital city. She had sent him a message just last week, telling him about her students and asking when he would visit. Tae-ho's hands did not shake as he watched the planet die. His voice did not waver when he spoke. He simply turned to Admiral Park, who stood beside him with tears running down her face, and asked, "What are your orders?" Park wiped her eyes. She had served in the military for 30 years. She had trained for war, but nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing could prepare anyone for watching millions of innocent people die, but she was still an admiral, and her people needed her. "Get me a channel to Human Command," she said. "Priority 1. Emergency broadcast to all fleet units." The communication officer worked quickly. Within minutes, every human ship, station, and colony was listening. And so was the rest of the galaxy. The Velthari had made sure everyone could see what they did to New Inchin. Now everyone would hear humanity's response. Admiral Park stood straight and spoke clearly. Her voice carried across the stars. "This is Admiral Unipark of the United Earth Fleet. 1 hour ago. The Velthari Dominion attacked the colony of New Inchin without warning or provocation. 4.2 million of our people are dead. Men, women, children, they died not because they were soldiers." She paused. The galaxy was listening. The Velthari believe we are weak. They believe we will surrender. They believe that because we have chosen peace for 300 years, we have forgotten how to fight. Her voice grew harder, colder. They are wrong. Across human space, people stopped what they were doing. Soldiers stood at attention. Civilians gathered around screens. On every world, in every station, humanity listened to their admiral. We did not ask for this war. We did not want it. But the Velthari have made their choice. They have chosen to murder our people. They have chosen to destroy our homes. They have chosen battle. Admiral Park looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were dry now. Her grief had turned into something else. Something the Velthari had not expected. "Since you chose battle," she said, "let us show you how it's done." The message ended. For a moment, there was silence across the galaxy. Then humanity began to move. On Earth, the United Council stopped debating. The vote for war was unanimous. Factories that had built civilian goods for centuries began to change. Engineers pulled out old designs, weapons that humanity had created long ago and hoped never to use again. Recruiting stations opened on every world, and the lines stretched for miles. On Sentinel-7, Commander Tai-Ho Kim began planning the first counterattack. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He worked through the night, studying Velthari tactics, looking for weaknesses that no one else could see, and across the galaxy, the other species watched in confusion. They had seen many wars. They had seen species fight and lose, surrender and submit. But they had never seen anything like this. The humans were not begging for mercy. They were not trying to negotiate. They were preparing to fight an enemy 1,000 times more powerful than themselves, the Velthari. High Command received reports of human mobilization. They dismissed them. What could humans do? They were children playing at war. The Dominion would crush them in 6 months, perhaps less. They did not understand what they had awakened. They would learn. The Velthari expected humanity to fall apart. That was what always happened when a small species faced a large one. Fear would spread. Leaders would argue. People would panic. Within weeks, the humans would come begging for peace, offering anything to make the pain stop. Instead, humanity did something the galaxy had not seen in 10,000 years. They united. Within 48 hours of the New Inchin massacre, every human military force answered to a single command. There were no arguments about territory or politics. There were no delays for debate. When human command gave an order, it was followed instantly. The scattered fleet became one fleet. The separate armies became one army. The Velthari did not notice. They were too busy celebrating. On the colony world of Sajong Prime, Captain Minho Beak received his orders. He was 40 years old, a career soldier who had spent most of his life training for a war that never came. Now it was here, and he had 3 weeks to prepare. Sajong Prime was a beautiful world. Green forests covered the mountains. Clear rivers ran through the valleys. 2 million people lived there, farming the rich soil and building quiet lives far from the troubles of the galaxy. They had no orbital defenses. They had no warships. They had Minho and 12,000 soldiers with outdated weapons. The Velthari were sending 80 warships to take the planet. By any reasonable measure, the situation was hopeless. Minicho gathered his officers in a small room and spread old maps across the table. Not star charts. Not tactical displays. Paper maps, the kind that humans had used for thousands of years. "Forget everything you learned about modern warfare," he said. "The Velthari are stronger than us. Their weapons are better. Their ships are bigger. If we fight them the way they expect, we will lose." He pointed to the forest on the map. "But they have to land troops to take this planet. And when they do, they will be in our home, on our ground, and we will make them pay for every step." For 3 weeks, Minho worked his people without rest. They dug tunnels beneath the cities. They hid weapons in the forests. They taught civilians how to fight, how to hide, how to survive. Old men who had never held a gun learned to shoot. Young women who had never seen violence learned to make bombs from farming chemicals. Minho did not lie to them. He told them the truth. Many of them would die, perhaps most of them, but they would not die on their knees. They would die fighting. They would take as many Velthri with them as they could. Not a single person left the planet far away. On a research station orbiting Earth, Dr. Hannah Choi received a visit from Admiral Park. Hannah was 38 years old, a physicist who had spent her career studying theoretical weapons, weapons that existed only in equations and computer models, weapons that no one had ever needed to build. "I need something that will change this war," Admiral Park said. "Something the Velthri have never seen. Can you do it?" Hannah looked at the Admiral for a long moment. She thought about New Inchin. She thought about the 4 million dead. She thought about her own daughter. Safe on Earth for now, but for how long? "Give me resources," Hannah said. "Give me people. I'll give you something that will make them afraid." The Admiral nodded. Within a day, Hannah had a team of 50 scientists and engineers. Within a week, she had a prototype. She called it the Whisper. It could not destroy a ship directly, but it could reach inside the quantum cores that powered Velthri technology and make them stop working. One moment, a warship would be the most powerful weapon in the sector. The next moment, it would be a dead hulk floating in space. The Velthri had never faced anything like it. No one had. Because no one else had ever been desperate enough to build it, Commander Taiho Kim worked on a different problem. The conventional wisdom said that humanity should defend its remaining colonies. Pull back. Dig in. Make the Velthri pay for every system they took. It was a reasonable strategy. It was the strategy that every other defeated species had tried. It had never worked. Taiho studied the records. Every species that had fought the Velthri had followed the same pattern. They defended. They retreated. They lost slowly instead of quickly. And in the end, they still lost. "Can't win by defending," Taiho told Admiral Park. "They're too strong. They have too many ships. If we just try to hold what we have, they'll grind us down. Then what do you suggest?" Taiho pulled up a star map. He pointed to a cluster of stars deep in Velthri territory. "We attack. Here, their main supply depot for this sector. It's lightly defended because no one has ever been crazy enough to attack Velthri space." Park studied the map. "That's suicide. We'd have to go through 3 defense lines just to reach it," as Taiho agreed. "But if we succeed, we cut their supply lines for months. And more importantly, we send a message. We're not prey. We're not going to hide and wait for them to kill us. We're going to hunt them." Park was quiet for a long time. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Do it," she said. Meanwhile, the Velthri captured their first human prisoners. A patrol ship had been ambushed. Its crew of 15 had been taken alive for interrogation. The Velthri expected the humans to break quickly. All species broke eventually. Fear was universal. Pain was universal. No one could resist forever. Lieutenant Soha Yoon was 26 years old. She had been the pilot of the captured ship. The Velthri interrogator was twice her size, with claws that could tear through metal. He asked her about human defenses, about fleet positions, about weapon capabilities. Soha looked at him and laughed. The interrogator was confused. Prisoners did not laugh. Prisoners begged. Prisoners cried. They did not laugh. "You really don't understand, do you?" Soha said. "You killed 4 million of our people. You thought that would make us afraid? You thought that would make us surrender?" She leaned forward as far as her restraints would allow. "You have no idea what you've started. You woke something up. Something old. Something that we buried a long time ago because it scared us. But you brought it back. And now you're going to see what humans really are." The interrogator struck her. She kept laughing across the galaxy. The other species watched and wondered. What kind of people were these humans? They were facing destruction, and they were laughing. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, and they were planning attacks. The Velthri High Command ordered the fleet to advance. They would crush these foolish creatures and restore order to the galaxy. They had no idea that the galaxy was about to change forever. The Velthri fleet arrived at Sajong Prime on a clear morning. 80 warships filled the sky, blocking out the sun. They sent a message to the surface, demanding immediate surrender. The response came from Captain Minho Beak. "Come down and take it." The Valkyrie commander was amused. This small planet with no defenses thought it could resist? He ordered his troops to land. 20,000 Valkyrie soldiers descended to the surface, armed with the finest weapons in the galaxy. They expected the operation to take 3 days at most. It took 3 months. The first wave of Valkyrie troops landed in an open field outside the capital city. They formed perfect lines and began marching toward their objective. They made it 200 meters before the ground exploded beneath them. Minho had buried thousands of mines across every approach to every city. The Valkyrie had scanners that could detect most explosives, but humans had been making bombs for thousands of years. They knew tricks that the galaxy had forgotten. The second wave landed in the forests, trying to avoid the minefields. They walked into ambushes. Human soldiers appeared from hidden positions, fired and vanished before the Valkyrie could respond. The aliens gave chase and ran into more traps. Pits filled with sharpened stakes, tripwires connected to explosives, fake trails that led into killing zones. Sergeant Yoonji Han was a combat medic assigned to the 3rd Defense Sector. She was 32 years old, small and quiet, with gentle hands that had healed hundreds of wounded soldiers. In the first week of fighting, she saved 47 lives while under enemy fire. In the second week, she killed 11 Valkyrie soldiers with a pistol when they overran her medical station. She kept one hand on her weapon, while the other hand stitched wounds closed. Her patients survived. The enemy did not. News of her actions spread through the resistance. Soldiers who were ready to give up heard about the medic who would not stop fighting. If she could do it, so could they. The Valkyrie commander ordered more troops. Then more. He sent messages to High Command requesting reinforcements. This was not supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to surrender. Instead, they were fighting for every building, every street, every room. The commander made a mistake that would cost him dearly. He ordered his troops to show no mercy. Kill everyone. Burn everything. Terror would break the humans where military force could not. He was wrong. On the 3rd day of the terror campaign, a young girl named Mireille watched Valkyrie soldiers kill her parents. She was 12 years old. She should have run. She should have hidden. Instead, she picked up her father's hunting rifle and shot 3 soldiers before they could react. Then she disappeared into the forest. Within a month, Mireille was leading a group of 20 children. All of them had lost their families. All of them had picked up weapons. The Valkyrie learned to fear the forests where the children hunted. Across the galaxy, broadcasts from Sajong Prime spread like fire. Other species watched in shock. The humans were not losing. They were bleeding the Valkyrie, making them pay for every inch of ground. The campaign that should have taken days was stretching into months. Sergeant Yoonji Han recorded a message that was broadcast on every frequency. She stood in the ruins of a hospital, covered in blood and dirt, a rifle in her hands. "You wanted our world," she said to the watching Valkyrie. "Come and take it. We will be waiting." While Sajong Prime burned, Commander Taiho Kim launched his attack on the Valkyrie supply depot. His strike force was small. 12 fast ships with crews who knew they might not come home. They slipped through enemy lines using routes that no one should have known about. Taiho spent weeks studying Valkyrie patrol patterns. He had found gaps. Moments when a ship could pass unseen. It required perfect timing and perfect luck. His pilots gave him both. The supply depot was a massive station orbiting a dead star. It held fuel and weapons for 100 warships. It was defended by only 6 patrol vessels, because no enemy had ever attacked this deep in Valkyrie territory. Taiho's ships came out of faster-than-light travel already firing. They destroyed 2 patrol vessels before the Valkyrie knew they were under attack. The remaining 4 tried to respond, but Taiho had planned for that too. His ships split into groups, attacking from multiple angles, never staying still long enough to be targeted. In 12 minutes, the depot was destroyed. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. Taiho lost 4 ships and 62 people, but he had done something that no one else had ever done. He had struck the Velthari in their own space. He had proven that they were not safe. Not anywhere. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Human ships had attacked Velthari territory. Human soldiers had destroyed a Velthari installation. The invincible Dominion was bleeding. Back on Earth, Dr. Hannah Choi finished the final tests on the Whisper weapon. It worked exactly as she had designed. One pulse could disable every Velthari ship within 1,000 kilometers. Their weapons would go silent. Their engines would die. Their shields would fall. She delivered the weapon to Admiral Park personally. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. She was exhausted. She had not slept more than 3 hours a night for 2 months, but she had done it. "This will change everything," Park said, looking at the small device. "I know," Hannah replied. "That's what scares me." Park put a hand on her shoulder. "Get some rest, Doctor. You've given us a chance. Now we have to take it." On Sejong Prime, the siege continued. The Velthari had taken the cities, but they did not control them. Humans hid in basements and tunnels, coming out at night to strike. Captain Minho Beek coordinated the resistance from a bunker deep underground, moving every few days to avoid detection. Of his original 12,000 soldiers, only 4,000 remained, but they had killed 15,000 Velthari. 3-1. The numbers were not sustainable for humanity, but they were not acceptable for the Velthari either. The Galactic Accord watched nervously. Several species began sending quiet messages to human diplomats. They were not offering alliance. Not yet. But they were offering conversation. They wanted to know more about these strange creatures who refused to die. The Velthari High Command finally understood they had a real war on their hands. They ordered a full mobilization. 400 warships would converge on human space. They would not make the mistake of underestimating humans again, but it was already too late. Humanity had bought time with blood, and in that time, they had built something the Velthari had never faced before. A weapon that could kill their ships. A strategy that ignored their defenses, and a will to fight that nothing could break. The real war was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the war began. The galaxy had expected it to be over by now. Instead, everything had changed. Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Unity. It was not as large as a Velthari warship. It was not as heavily armed, but it carried something the Velthari did not have. The Whisper, the Battle of the Varus Corridor, would be remembered for 1,000 years. The Velthari had gathered 47 of their finest warships in the corridor, preparing for a major offensive against human colonies. They were confident. Their fleet was overwhelming. Human ships had proven dangerous in small numbers, but they could not stand against this much firepower. Admiral Park brought 30 ships. The Velthari commander laughed when he saw the human fleet. This would be a slaughter. Then Hannah Choi activated the Whisper. The pulse was invisible. It made no sound. It simply reached out across the void and touched every Velthari ship at once. The effect was immediate. Lights flickered and died. Weapons went silent. Engines stopped. In 3 seconds, 47 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy became floating tombs. The Velthari crews scrambled to restore power. But there was nothing to restore. The Whisper had not damaged their ships. It had simply turned them off. And without power, they could not turn them back on. Lieutenant Commander Jiho Eseo led the boarding parties. He was 34 years old, a former police officer who had joined the military after New Incheon. He was not a gentle man. He had seen what the Velthari did to civilians. He felt no mercy. His team cut through the airlock of the Velthari flagship and entered the darkened corridors. Emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls. The Velthari soldiers inside were twice his size. But they were confused, disorganized, and their weapons did not work. Jiho's weapons worked fine. The fighting was brutal and close. Human soldiers moved through the corridors in small teams, clearing each section methodically. The Velthari fought back with claws and teeth when their guns failed. Some of them were terrifying opponents, but humans had been fighting in close quarters since before they learned to make fire. In 2 hours, the flagship was captured. The Velthari commander was taken alive, the first high-ranking prisoner of the war. He looked at Jiho with something the human had never seen on a Velthari, a face before. Fear. The capture of the fleet yielded treasures beyond the ships themselves. Intelligence officers found battle plans, communication codes, and something even more valuable. Evidence that the Velthari Dominion was not as unified as it appeared. Several Dominion worlds were growing restless. The war was supposed to be quick and easy. Instead, it was draining resources and killing soldiers. Some Velthari leaders were beginning to question whether these humans were worth the trouble. Admiral Park saw an opportunity. She did not just want to win battles. She wanted to break the Velthari forever. She wanted the galaxy to see that the mighty Dominion could be defeated. She ordered a new campaign. Human ships would strike Velthari military installations across the sector. Each attack would be broadcast to the entire galaxy. Each victory would come with the same message: we did not choose this war, but we will finish it. The strikes were devastating. Human ships appeared without warning, used the whisper to disable defenses, and destroyed everything of military value before disappearing. The Velthari sent ships to hunt them, but the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. Commander Taiho Kim had become something between a hero and a ghost. He led the most dangerous missions personally, striking targets that seemed impossible to reach. His sister's face haunted his dreams, but it also drove him forward. Every Velthari installation he destroyed was revenge for Jimin. Every victory was a message to the dead. We have not forgotten you. On Sejong Prime. The siege finally broke. Captain Minho Beek had held on for 6 months. His forces had been reduced from 12,000 to just over 2,000. They had eaten rats and tree bark when the food ran out. They had made bullets from melted-down pipes when the ammunition was gone. They had refused to surrender, even when surrender seemed like the only option. Now, the Velthari fleet crippled by the whisper, reinforcements finally arrived. Human ships broke through the orbital blockade. Fresh troops landed on the surface. Minho gathered his surviving soldiers for a final attack. They came out of their tunnels and bunkers, thin and exhausted but still dangerous. The Velthari troops, demoralized and cut off from support, fell back. Private Narimun was 19 years old. She had joined the militia on the first day of the invasion. She had watched friends die beside her. She had killed more enemies than she could count. She had not cried once. When the last Velthari position fell, Nari climbed to the top of their command post. The building was a ruin, burned and blasted by months of fighting, but it was the highest point in the city. She planted a human flag on the rubble. A photographer captured the moment. Within hours, the image had spread across the galaxy. A young woman, barely more than a girl, standing on the ruins of enemy power, the flag of humanity waving behind her. She said nothing. Her face showed no emotion, but her silence spoke louder than any words. Humanity had won the galactic accord, fractured further. Several species openly broke with the Velthari, refusing to support a war that was clearly failing. Others reached out to humanity, offering trade deals and diplomatic recognition. The dominion that had ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years was crumbling. But Admiral Park was not satisfied. They need to learn, she told her commanders. Not just that we can fight, not just that we can win. They need to learn that attacking humanity has consequences. Real consequences. Consequences they will never forget. Commander Taiho Kim nodded. He had been thinking the same thing for months. Operation Homecoming, he said. We attack their homeworld. The other commanders were shocked. No one had ever attacked Velthor Prime. The very idea was insane. It's not about conquest, Taiho explained. We don't want their territory. We just want to send a message. We want them to feel what we felt when they destroyed New Inchan. We want them to know that nowhere is safe. That if they come for us, we will come for them. Admiral Park looked at her tactical officer. She saw the grief behind his calm eyes. She understood it. Begin planning, she said. We end this war where it started, with a message. Lieutenant Soha-Yoon had been rescued from Vel-3 captivity 2 months earlier. She had been tortured. She had been starved. She had never broken. Now she sat in the cockpit of a new fighter, waiting for the order to launch. She was going home. And she was bringing hell with her. Vel-3 Prime had never been attacked. In 40,000 years, no enemy ship had come within 100 light-years of the homeworld. The Dominion's capital was sacred ground, protected by fleets and defense stations, and the simple fact that no one was foolish enough to try. Admiral Una Park was foolish enough. The United Earth. Fleet gathered at a hidden staging area 3 days' travel from Vel-3 space. 300 warships, every vessel humanity could spare. The crews knew this might be a one-way trip. They came anyway. Park walked through her flagship, speaking to the soldiers and officers who would fight beside her. She did not give speeches about glory or destiny. She simply told them the truth. 1 year ago, they killed 4 million of our people. They thought we would break. They thought we would surrender. They were wrong. Tomorrow, we show them how wrong they were. Commander Tai-Ho Kim ran the final calculations. The Vel-3 home fleet numbered 500 warships. Humanity was outnumbered, but they had advantages the Vel-3 did not expect. The Whisper would disable the largest ships. Human pilots were better trained for close-quarters fighting. And humanity had something no equation could measure. The memory of New Incheon burning in their hearts. The fleet jumped. They emerged from faster than light, to travel in the skies above Vel-3 Prime. Below them, billions of Vel-3 looked up and saw something impossible. Enemy ships in their sky. Human ships come to deliver judgment. The Vel-3 home fleet responded instantly. 500 warships moved to intercept the invaders. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. The defenders outnumbered the attackers almost 2 to 1. Dr. Hannah Choi sat in a command center aboard the flagship, her finger on the Whisper controls. She had not wanted this. She had become a scientist to create, not to destroy. But the Vel-3 had not given her a choice. They had not given anyone a choice. "Admiral," she said, "the weapon is ready." Park nodded. "Wait for my signal. Let them come closer." The Vel-3 flagship led the charge. It was a massive vessel, 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Its commander was a veteran of 20 campaigns. He had never lost a battle. He would lose this one. The 2 fleets closed. Vel-3 weapons opened fire. Human ships scattered, faster and more agile than their larger opponents. Explosions lit up the void. Ships died on both sides. Then Park gave the signal. Hannah activated the Whisper. The pulse rippled outward. Every major Vel-3 vessel within range went dark. The flagship, the battleships, the heavy cruisers. Their weapons fell silent. Their shields collapsed. Their engines died. Smaller ships, less dependent on the quantum cores, remained active. But the heart of the Vel-3 fleet was gone in an instant. All ships, Park commanded, attack. The Battle of Vel-3 Prime lasted 16 hours. It was the largest space battle in galactic history. It was also the most one-sided human ships tore through the disabled Vel-3 fleet. Boarding parties captured vessel after vessel. Fighter pilots hunted down the smaller ships that tried to escape. The void filled with wreckage and bodies. Captain Minho Beek, promoted after Sejong Prime and given command of his own cruiser, broke through the defensive perimeter around the planet itself. His guns targeted military installations on the surface, the same installations that had planned the attack on New Incheon. He watched them burn and felt nothing. Lieutenant Commander Ji Hoseo led boarding parties onto 2 more enemy vessels. He lost 30 soldiers. The Vel-3 lost 2,000. He did not celebrate. He simply moved to the next target. Sergeant Yoon Ji-han commanded a medical frigate that stayed at the edge of the battle, retrieving wounded and damaged ships. She saved 400 lives that day. When the battle was over, she finally allowed herself to cry. Lieutenant Soha-Yoon flew her fighter into the heart of the enemy formation. She shot down 7 Vel-3 interceptors and disabled a patrol ship. When her ammunition ran out, she rammed a Vel-3 bomber that was heading toward a human transport. She ejected at the last second and was recovered 2 hours later, conscious but alive. Commander Tae-ho Kim coordinated the battle from the flagship's tactical center. He saw everything. He directed everything. He felt nothing. His sister was avenged. Nuin-chin was avenged. 4 million ghosts could finally rest. When the Vel-3 flagship fell, captured by human marines who fought through its corridors deck by deck, the Dominion's will to fight collapsed. Ships that could still move began to retreat. Signals came from the surface, begging for ceasefire. Admiral Park did not accept immediately. She waited. She let them beg. She let them feel the fear that humanity had felt 1 year ago. Then she broadcast a message. Not to the Vel-3, to the entire galaxy. Came to the stars in peace. We asked only to exist. When we were attacked, we defended ourselves. When our people were murdered, we answered. She paused. Every species in the Galactic Accord was listening. Every world that had watched the war unfold was waiting for her words. This is not conquest. We do not want Vel-3 territory. We do not want their tribute. We want them to understand. We want everyone to understand. Her voice grew harder. Remember this day. Remember what happens when you mistake our patience for weakness? When you mistake our kindness for cowardice? When you mistake our desire for peace as an inability to wage war? She looked directly into the camera, and the galaxy saw eyes that had watched millions die and had refused to look away. We do not seek enemies, but we do not fear them either. To those who would threaten humanity, we have shown you how it's done. Pray you never make us show you again. The Vel-3 Dominion surrendered unconditionally. The terms were simple. Reparations for Nuin-chin. Independence for all human colonies. A seat on the Galactic Accord's High Council. And a promise, enforced by treaty and witnessed by every species in the galaxy, that the Vel-3 would never attack humanity again. The war was over in the months that followed. The galaxy reorganized itself. The Accord invited humanity to join not as newcomers, but as equals. Many species that had dismissed humans now treated them with respect. Some treated them with fear. None of them forgot what they had seen. Admiral Una Park, retired to a small house on Earth. She tended a garden and watched the sunset every evening. She did not give interviews. She did not write memoirs. She simply lived quietly, trying to forget the cost of victory. Commander Tae-ho Kim took her place. He built a fleet so powerful that no one would ever think of attacking humanity again. He never married. He never had children. He gave his life to the military because the military had given him purpose when everything else was taken away. Dr. Hannah Choi returned to theoretical research. She locked away the whisper designs and hoped they would never be needed again. At night, she sometimes dreamed of the ships she had killed. She told no one about the dreams. Captain Min-ho Beek became the governor of Sajong Prime. He rebuilt the cities the war had destroyed. He planted trees in the forest that had burned. He made sure that every child on the planet knew the names of the soldiers who had died defending them. Sergeant Yoon Ji-han opened a hospital on Earth. She spent the rest of her life saving people. Trying to balance the scales in her own mind, she never stopped working. She never stopped caring. Lieutenant So-ha Yoon trained the next generation of pilots. She told them about the war. She told them about the friends she had lost. She told them to be ready, always ready, because peace was precious and fragile and had to be protected. Lieutenant Commander Ji-ho Seo became a diplomat. He spent his days talking to alien species, building alliances, making friends where there had once been enemies. He never forgot the corridors of the Vel-3 flagship. But he learned to live with the memories. And Private Nari Moon, the girl who had planted the flag on Sajong Prime, went home to Earth. She hung up her uniform. She found a small apartment with a window facing west. Every evening, she watched the sunset. She did not speak of the war. She did not need to. The image of her standing on the rubble, the flag waving behind her, was carved into monuments across human space. Children learned her name in school. Historians wrote books about her, but Nari just watched the sunset and remembered, and tried to find peace. The last message from Human Command still echoed through history. Since you chose battle, let us show you how it's done. Humanity had shown them. The galaxy would never forget, and somewhere in the stars, the spirits of 4 million people rested at last. Knowing that their deaths had not been in vain, humanity had answered. Humanity had won, and humanity would endure.